Hey everybody, I think we're live. This is Dan Reecer from the Acala team, and I'm joined here by Bette Chen, one of our co-founders. Today we're going to be we're going to try to keep it to around an hour, maybe a little bit less, but we're going to be talking through a few things. So as you know, the main topic is around Crowdloans and Parachain auctions and everything that's coming for Kusama first, and then Polkadot following that. But beginning, we're going to actually go into a little bit of detail, just for those of you who may not be super aware of how Polkadot works and everything around Polkadot and Kusama. So we'll start with that, and then after the Crowdloan section, Bette will get into everything around Acala and Carrera, and share a little detail around what's coming soon with the Carrera Crowdloan. We've got a poll here that I did, and it looks like our average is definitely skewing towards, I've tried to learn about Crowdloans, but I'm confused. So I'm going to try to do a poll at the end, and hopefully after seeing this presentation, many of you will start moving up that scale towards understanding. Bette, do you want to give a quick introduction of yourself, and then I'll go ahead and get started?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dan. Yes, thanks for everyone turning up. I know it's all weird time zone around the world. It's about 7:30 a.m. here in Auckland, New Zealand. Yeah, I'm the co-founder of Acala. Yeah, I have been leading in charge of operation products, working alongside with Brian, Retail, and many other pretty cool folks in the ecosystem and community to get to where we are. But I think we're only getting started. So yeah, back to you, Dan.
Cool. Thanks, Bette. Yeah, and I guess it's a quick intro on me. So Dan Reecer, I'm leading growth here at Acala and Carrera. Been on the team now for just, I think, exactly 2 months now. Prior to this, spent some time at the Web3 Foundation working on Polkadot and Kusama. So hopefully I can use some of that knowledge from that role in the presentation today about Polkadot. And then, yeah, we'll get into kind of the details around Crowdloans. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Yeah. One second. Okay. All right. Everybody can see my screen and still hear me, hopefully. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to start here with Polkadot. So as you know, Polkadot was founded by Gavin Wood, who previously was a co-founder of Ethereum. He built the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, and he also created the Solidity programming language. But following that experience, he kind of realized that Ethereum wasn't going to scale and could be much better. So he ended up creating Polkadot, building a new programming language called Substrate, which everything in the Polkadot ecosystem is built on. And here we are today, getting very close to actually launching some of the first parachains on top of what Gavin built. At the highest level, what Polkadot does is it solves essentially 6 key problems that exist in today's kind of legacy networks like Ethereum or Bitcoin. Most notably, connecting networks together. So this is the concept of interoperability that I know many of you have heard about over the last 3-ish years. We also, as Polkadot also kind of helps solve scaling problems. It helps with teams who need security for their blockchains, and I'll get into that later. Polkadot and Substrate specifically, in the bottom left here, enables teams to build custom platforms for specific use cases. So in Acala's case, we have custom built our Parachain, our blockchain, specifically for DeFi, and Bette will explain that later. Polkadot has also kind of changed the way governance works, taking it out of the hands of a few people and into the hands of the entire network. And then last, the ability to self-upgrade. I kind of compare this to like a Tesla. You buy a Tesla, and you can actually get these upgrades over the air that actually add new features to your car, making it retain more value and actually stay more current and future-proof because you're able to upgrade it as you go. So I'll dive into each one of these categories very quickly, and I think this is necessary background before we get into Crowdloans, because in order to understand why somebody would launch on Polkadot, I think you need to understand what Polkadot is and why teams like Acala and Carrera have chosen to build in this ecosystem, where we had the choice to build in several ecosystems and did a lot of research on that. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll understand why we chose to build on Polkadot and build Carrera on build Carrera on Kusama. So single blockchains like Bitcoin and like Ethereum some of them do things really well. Like Bitcoin, it does this digital gold narrative very well. But there's also chains like Ethereum who have done a phenomenal job with their kind of single blockchain, but they're attempting to do kind of everything just with one blockchain. But what Polkadot is allowing people to do is to build custom blockchains for a specific purpose, like finance or like gaming or like insurance. And these blockchains that you can see here, each one of these little squares is a blockchain. These will all be able to work together and communicate data and value between each other. Through the use of bridges, there's several bridges that are already being built in the ecosystem, but these bridges will allow not only Polkadot itself, but also every one of these blockchains around this kind of infrastructure here to bridge to Ethereum, for example, with a bridge that's being built by a team called Snowfork. Also bridges to Bitcoin. There's like at least 3 or 4 of those being built. And several other blockchain networks will be bridged. One thing that people ask a lot too is, what about Kusama? Will Kusama be able to interact with Polkadot? And the answer is definitely yes. And this will probably be one of the first bridges that we see built once Kusama and Polkadot are initially launched. So customizability, you'll hear about Substrate more and more as you get deeper into the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem. But essentially what Substrate is, you can think of it like almost like a music EQ, where you can tweak things up and down and change the way the blockchain actually works for specific purposes. And what that actually looks like when you're a developer is you're actually using something called like Substrate palettes. So you can go in and actually choose, pick and choose what parts of your blockchain you want in order to create the kind of perfect blockchain for your use case. The cool thing is that this is not capped. These Substrate palettes can actually continue and will continue expanding over time. Teams like Akala are actually already custom building palettes that we can use to, within our blockchain, and then other teams in the ecosystem can actually take what we've built and build upon that. So things like the Acala dollar, Liquid Dot, which Betty will mention later, our DEX, the Akala EVM that we customized, are all things that are available at a blockchain level. This is pretty surprising when I heard this number, but the Polkadot and Kusama are able to scale to up to around 166,000 transactions per second, according to the research team at Web3 when we talked last year. And this compared to your standard like Visa level transactions per second, and then of course Ethereum and Bitcoin. It's exciting to see where we are kind of headed towards when we begin ramping up these two networks. Governance, just quickly important to mention, is that governance, like I said, is allowing Polkadot and Kusama to manage this network at an entire community level versus being governed by an individual person or a small group of people. And then a couple more. So you'll hear the terms shared security, sometimes plug and play security, which I kind of prefer. But what this really means is that Polkadot and Kusama are both extremely attractive for development teams like us at Akala, because it saves us the trouble of having to go out and recruit an entire set of network validators who actually help us run our network and secure our network. So when you think about Polkadot and Kusama versus other alternatives, this is one major reason why many teams are choosing to build in this ecosystem, because it just takes a lot of the effort on the security side off of the team and allows us to focus on building our product. So that's about it for Polkadot. I'm just gonna, that graphic that I just showed you here, I'm gonna flip that now on its side and show you what's actually going on top of Polkadot and Kusama. So you can see here, this Polkadot and Kusama is kind of the base layer, what we're calling a layer 0. On top of that will be all these different parachains being built. So Akala, you'll have Plasm, Moonbeam, everyone else. And then on top of each of these parachains will be applications, users, value, liquidity, and this will all be interoperable. So you'll be able to send tokens and data and smart contract data between these different parachains and these different applications, all in one kind of cohesive universe. Now, last but definitely not least, one network that I definitely love talking about is Kusama. I know many people on this call are Kusama fans as well. And the key differences between Kusama and Polkadot are small but important. The network is built the exact same way as Polkadot, but it's meant to be more of an experimental and fast-moving environment for teams to be able to take what they've done on testnet and then move it on to Kusama, which has quite significant value now, but gives them a place to experiment with new features, but also run a full-on network for providing value in some way to the Kusama community. So this is what we've decided to do with Carrera. We're building Carrera for kind of satisfying the DeFi demand of the Kusama community. And then at the same time, we'll have Akala being built on Polkadot. So, okay, let's now get into, okay, I've explained everything about Polkadot. I've explained Kusama. You've now hopefully got a good background on how all of this works. But at this point, if you see this gray circle here, this is the relay chain of Polkadot, and in the gray circle over here of Kusama. In reality, if we were to show a diagram of what this network looks like today, it's just a bare gray circle. There's none of these parachains around the edge right now. So what's coming up right now with the Crowdloan and the Parachain auction process is multiple teams are going to be trying to get this very first slot on Kusama's network. Kusama's launching first, so teams can come in and learn how this process works and get launched there. And then following Kusama, everyone will begin launching on Polkadot. So that leads me into Crowdloans and Parachain auctions, and hopefully going to simplify this and answer some of the questions you might have in your head. And then towards the end, we're definitely going to save some time to answer your questions, because we know this is a lot to comprehend. It's all new. It's new to us, and I know it's new to you guys. So let's get into this and try to break it down at a more simple level, and then see what questions you all have. So the main event of this whole process is this white line here, the Parachain auction. What this is it's multiple Parachain teams that are bidding in an auction, just like you might have seen on like a website like eBay, or there's house auctions. There's several different auctions historically, but this is the main event that everyone is trying to essentially win so that their Parachain can get a slot on Kusama. But in order to bid in that auction, teams have two choices. They can, number one, they can bid in the auction with just a single account. Maybe it's somebody that just holds a lot of KSM and they can just do that themselves. Or the second and more common option is a crowd loan. So a crowd loan allows teams like Carrera to crowdsource KSM from the community. And the community is actually providing KSM to Carrera in order to bid as our opening bid in this auction. So instead of using one account and bidding on our own, we're actually involving the community and seeing this as an excellent opportunity to kind of distribute the token, get the community involved, and hopefully win the auction to launch as the first Parachain on Kusama. So if we win, that's the next step after the Parachain auction. So win the slot and launch, and then each team will be bidding for a specific duration of that slot. So let's say, for example, that the slot is 1 year for this example. Then at the end of this year, all the contributors at the beginning of the process during the crowd loan actually receive all of the KSM back. And because of this is why we're so excited about this process and really trying to get the message out to the whole industry that this is the new kind of more ethical, and it's just a new ethical model for bootstrapping new blockchain teams and new projects, because you're essentially, the reason why the developers called it a crowd loan is because you're essentially loaning KSM kind of watching the team progress through their 1 year slot in this case, in this example, but then you actually get your kind of loaned KSM back. So it's a really interesting model and definitely an improvement on what we're used to seeing with ICOs and IDOs and all of this stuff that really doesn't hold the team accountable for delivering on anything. But in our case, since we aren't actually touching any of the KSM that is contributed, it's all going into the auction and kind of locked in the Kusama Parachain, in the Kusama relay chain. We are really being held accountable to actually deliver value and return value to all the people who are supporting our blockchain. So this is just a little bit more detailed example, kind of a breakdown of the example that I just walked you through, and I'll just take you through how this flow works. So here in the beginning, you have users. It could be me, you, anyone on the call here, anyone in the community contributing KSM to this Crowdloan. And during this Crowdloan, there will be multiple Parachain teams putting in bids, aiming to win this auction. And then let's say, for example, the team is crowned the winner, and this is what happened next during the launch. So as I mentioned, this KSM that's contributed during the Crowdloan is not touched by the team. The only thing the team can do is basically push that in as their bid in the auction. But then when they win, anything that's contributed to that Crowdloan is then locked in the Kusama, in like the core of Kusama, the relay chain. But at the same time, KAR or any token of the Parachain that you're supporting will then be distributed to you as a contributor or as a user. And these are the same people back here. So you contributed in the Crowdloan, your team won, and then here there's a distribution event of the KAR token to those users. And then at the same time, going back to the original diagram of the whole kind of Kusama relay chain, this is where we would actually, as Carrera, go in and earn that slot, and then all of our DeFi applications, our platform is ready, teams can begin building on Carrera, or users can begin coming in and using all the products that we've built. And then finally, at the end of this slot that we get, in this example, 1 year, all the KSM is returned to supporters. So again, that's kind of what gives the name Crowdloan. I've already covered this, but I guess I'll just leave it up for a second in case people want to pause this video when they go back and review this. Let's see, I've also covered all of this. There's some detail that we can just go back and you guys can read if you would like in the recording. This is just a little bit deeper of deeper dive on this first Crowdloan part. So just to show you that there's going to be multiple Parachain teams doing these Crowdloans all at once. And then when these Parachain teams basically crowdsource all of that KSM, I kind of like to compare it to like having a stack of chips, because what happens is Parachain B crowdsourced 45K, Parachain C crowdsourced 40K, and then Parachain A, for example, 55K. But what they do is essentially when the Parachain auction starts, it's like being at a poker table and pushing all of your chips in at once, because what I'll show you on the next slide is the auction is kind of structured in a way that incentivizes teams to bid as high as they can as quickly as possible. And here's why. So when the auction starts, and I know this is a lot of detail, so just trying to break it down for everybody, because this is really what's about to start happening soon. So it's great for everyone to be kind of aware of the details. So here, when the Parachain auction starts, everybody in the community will know the open time and we will know the close time. So let's just say, for example, this is 7 days. Teams will then begin like pushing in their chips, pushing in their Crowdloan for their bids. But what happens is throughout this auction period, teams will be bidding and outbidding. All of this stuff will be done on chain. We will all be able to kind of watch this like a spectacle or a sporting event. But what we don't know, and the most exciting moment will be when this close time happens, the system randomly generates this, what's called a random beacon, but it generates a randomized time that selects the winner. So it's not like an eBay auction where everybody's going to shoot their bids in at the end to try to like snipe to win. Everyone is actually incentivized to bid as high as they can as early as possible, because we actually don't know when the winner is going to be determined. So when this randomly selected time is chosen, then whoever had the highest bid at that time, in this example, Parachain A with 55K, will be the winner, and then they would move on. And back in that chart that I showed you, they'll move on to the whole launch process. So this is just a recap of everything that I just showed you, the whole process from Crowdloan to Parachain auction to launch and earning that slot on the network. And then what will happen is this will actually be taking place quite frequently. So Polkadot announced, and we're not sure exactly if it'll be the same for Kusama, but Polkadot's plan is to do it every 2 weeks. So you'll have an auction 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, until we scale up to around 100 or more parachains. So the reason why this is exciting is we're actually kind of approaching this period of time where these Kusama and then Polkadot parachain auctions are going to be ongoing every 2 weeks for the next 5+ years, depending on if governance changes the way all of this works or anything like that. But it's going to be fun, and it's going to be pretty crazy. One last thing before I move on to Bette. A lot of people ask, so what happens at the end of this parachain slot? So like I mentioned, the KSM is returned to automatically from the Kusama relay chain itself to the contributors who supported the Crowdloan. But there's actually a few options for those teams when their slot ends. So number one, a team can actually host another Crowdloan and do this process again when the auction and what have you. So I've already been through that. Number two, which is pretty interesting and a unique kind of aspect of the way Acala and Carrera will work, is we are actually going to have our own what we're calling network controlled value. And within that, the Acala Treasury and the Acala Decentralized Sovereign Wealth Fund, those also both apply to Carrera. So in Carrera's case, if we have a 1-year slot, our network and our DeFi protocols are actually going to be building up our own treasury to the point where we hope to be able to self-fund these auctions in the future instead of having to rely on doing this whole Crowdloan and Parachain auction process again. And then third is kind of a fallback for some teams. Some teams may actually decide that they only need, they don't need constant access to the blockchain itself. Maybe it's like a weather application or a weather parachain where they don't need to be contributing weather data to the blockchain every second. Maybe every day is fine, just to show that there's not a hurricane, for example. The other way around is if you're like a DeFi chain like us, or you're a team that does need constant access to the relay chain, you would most likely use a Parathread as a temporary option before moving back to the Parachain setup. So cool. Hopefully you guys write down your questions. I'm going to move on to Bette now to get into a little bit about Acala and Carrera. And I know there's going to be, wow, there's 51 questions. So we'll come back to questions after Bette gets into this a little bit. And then we'll wrap up. So thank you guys. Bette, do you want me to just keep my slides up for now? Or do you want to take over?
Yeah, please let me take over.
Okay,
thanks.
Cool. How do I stop sharing? There we go.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. I'll share my screen. All right, let me move you up so I can still see everyone. Okay. So everyone can see my screen now? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone can see.
Could see
everyone
it
can
now,
hear.
not
okay,
anymore.
Cool. Oh, okay.
There we go.
Okay. So I will go into a little bit more on Akala and probably more specifically on Karura, and then I will actually go into a bit more what the Karura sort of product and also the token economics, and then maybe more specifically the Crowdloan. I see some very good questions being asked there. So I won't actually go into too much of the product demo today, because I think next week there will be another session. I think Retail is going to walk you guys through the app and etc. But I just want to show you guys that when you're looking at projects, it's important to, I guess, if you are here getting very excited about Akala, about Polkadot, and you haven't used the app yet, then there's another checkbox to check off to see, how good the app are. Is it useful to you, or is it useful to, folks that in your circle, etc. So basically, like Akala, we are building a DeFi suite. So you can think about us as a decentralized bank that you can walk into instead of using your house as collateral to borrow revolving credit, maybe to renovate your house or do some other work on your property. You can use your crypto assets as collateral to borrow stable coins or US dollars, and then use it for trading, or perhaps getting more Bitcoin or DOT for whatever reason there is, right? And so this is the full DeFi suite that we'll build out for Akala. And then I saw some of the questions asked around all the tokens that are available within the DeFi suite. So I'll just go into a little bit more detail on that. So the first product that we have is the multi-collateralized stablecoin. So that's the Akala dollar. So everything I say here referring to Akala, if you are thinking about Karura, if that's more of your thing, then you just switch Akala to Karura, and then AUSD is basically Karura US dollars that's available within the Kusama ecosystem. And then this multi-collateralized stable coin is basically a scenario I was talking about. You can use your Bitcoin, use your DOT, ETH asset as well. I saw someone asking a question about Ethereum Bridge. That's actually being built. We actually launched a test net on Kovan and our Mandala. We haven't announced it yet. For everything we do, we try to make sure that everything works before we tell people. And as soon as we are happy with it, we will let you guys to try to actually bring your ETH and ERC20 tokens to Akala, and then see how it feels like. And then the the second product we have is a decentralized exchange. So it's AMM, automatic market maker. So it's a bit like Uniswap in terms of the mechanism, but obviously it's built at a lower level so that it can be used as a unified source of liquidity for the entire Akala network. So for example, we often say on Akala, you can bring your own gas, right? So this is a term invented by Dan. Basically, you can pay your gas fee using any tokens you want. For example, we are collaborating with Ampleforce, and you can pay fee in Ample, or I saw someone mention Bitcoin maxis. Well, you don't need to swap your Bitcoin to anything else. You can pay gas fees in Bitcoin as well if you want, or in any other stable coin. So this is all made possible because we have this DEX built into our core level of the blockchain. And then the third product we have is the liquid DOT. So basically, this is like today, if you stake your DOT, you kind of lose liquidity of that DOT, right? You kind of lock your DOT there for as long as you're staking and earning the reward. And we basically create a tokenized version of it. So it's a little bit like you put your DAI into Compound and you get CDAI out, which is interest earning, but you can still use the CDAI as like ERC20 to trade, to use as collateral. So similar concept. Of course, the mechanism is way different. So in here, you stake your DOT through Akala trustlessly, and then you will get a tokenized version of it called LDOT. So that's the token there. Of course, on Kusama, it will be LKSM. And then with that, you obviously, if you hold it, you earned staking yield. But if you use it for collateral, then you are earning staking yield. But at the same time, you can borrow and then maybe double long your DOT or KSM, whichever you like. And I won't go into detail with our wealth fund. I think it worth another session to talk about our network control value. I do think that's a new moat that people will start realizing. We're probably first to come up with this idea maybe a year or so ago when we first started Akala, but we will soon make this actually work in real life. And I think everyone, in the community or will be holding ACA will be really happy about how this will be going. So I'll just leave that there. And then for everything that we've done here in Akala, there will be a suite being built on the Kusama as the Kusama DeFi hub. And of course, you now see, Kusama kind of evolve into quite a different character, as well as a different personality or ecosystem and community versus Polkadot. I kind of imagine Carrera will be similar because a lot of the parameters on the Carrera DeFi hub will be very different and higher risk tolerance than Akala. And for example, the collaterals that we accept may be very much tuned to Kusama. Kusama is there's Kusama Society, there's arts creative community, there's NFTs, right? So potentially we could actually tokenize those NFTs and use those as collaterals to borrow in Carrera, but we'll probably never be able to do that on Akala, right? So that will be some of the product differentiation. Of course, hopefully that also inspire some innovators there to create different financial products on Carrera. So yeah, so this is what will be launched very soon. And as soon as Kusama has the Parachain available, then Carrera will be first to jump on the auction and then try to launch the product. And as soon as the network launches, you will be able to start using some of these products, make your KSM work, basically. For those of you, probably fairly new, I really encourage you to, get onto the app. This is a kind of like a new dark mode app for people to try out. So I do encourage to try that out and see what you like and what you don't like. And so I won't actually go into too much detail on it today. Cautious of time. And the next thing I kind of want to talk about is a little bit around the platform itself. I think this, I won't talk too much because Dan kind of alluded to this already, is like comparisons of evolution of the blockchains, right? So everyone's here is familiar with Bitcoin, but from an engineering perspective, it is just a ledger, right? It does what it does really well. As for Ethereum, the real evolution there is it has a ledger and it also added this EVM, right? That's the innovation, because within the EVM, then you can program some applications on top of it. And then use those two as the baseline. This is what Akala offers, or what the substrate Codebase offers, and how Akala takes it to a product level. We still have Ledger, but it's all customizable, and we are powered by Polkadot security, right? So this means quite specifically on day one is if you are using any of the financial products on Akala, you are enjoying Polkadot's network security. So that is lost track, maybe 35 billion right now, or something like that. So that's probably peace of mind for those of you who are going to use our products. And then the second thing is, instead of just one EVM, right? If everything is kind of like built inside EVM, the new innovations I talk about, right? So if you can pay gas fee in any tokens, and also some of the the safer liquidation mechanisms that we have for our stablecoin, you wouldn't be able to do that if you are only having a EVM sandbox. So the innovation here is we are able to customize a lot of the platform level stuff to make our financial product that's more robust and more production grade ready and more scalable. But of course, we have an EVM that is fully, Solidity and Ethereum compatible, and we already have quite a number of projects to deploy on us to actually build, launch their own branches, open their own branches on Akala, and bring some of their users to Akala and Polkadot ecosystem, but of course also get access to a lot more asset variety within the Polkadot ecosystem. And also, yeah, we haven't announced this, but I think I can share this. Is we've recently also collaborated with Compound Lab. So we are building a integration between Akala and the Compound Chain, which is a multi-chain money market. So hopefully that will also open doors, because we always believe in the multi-chain vision. So hopefully we can bring the money market services into Polkadot and Akala, but also at the same time open doors for DOT and Liquid DOT, those variety assets, to be added as new collaterals in money markets. So really trying to accelerate the progression of crypto assets in a multi-chain future that we are seeing that's coming live. So that's all I will say in terms of just the product itself. And Dan, do you want me to go into a little bit of the economic side of things right now, or?
Yeah, that works. You can show that. I think people have questions about that, and then if you want to show the website,
okay,
like you mentioned, that'd be cool.
Okay, sounds good. I see, what slides do I have here? Right. Okay, so I'll probably start addressing some of the questions that people have, and then just go into a bit more on the auction. So one of the reasons why you should consider Parachain auction, and obviously none of this is financial advice, is based on the economy of Kusama or economy of Polkadot. They're the same. So right now, some folks asking the question, if you're enjoying really high return by staking, why would you do anything else with your KSM or DOT, right? So that's a very good question. But I encourage you to look at I think the staking wiki on Polkadot. So basically what it says is on this chart is by design, the optimal economy of DOT or KSM equivalent is 50% is for staking, and then about 25 to 30% is for Parachain auctions, and 20% is like other stuff like liquid. And right now, because nothing is happening apart from staking, so this number is up a higher level. I think it's at 75%. And this will actually automatically adjust it. If there are more than 50% of the people staking, you will see the staking yield dropping, right? So right now it's at 75%, so you're all fine. Everyone stakes, and you will still be fine enjoying the highest staking return. But as soon as there's the first Parachain gets launched, or Parachain slot becomes available, you will start to see the return going to drop. And this is like coded on chain, right? So then kind of it's a market mechanism to encourage people to, I guess, allocate their DOT tokens for different, I guess, purposes on the chain to bootstrap the Parachain, as well as securing the network. So you should keep this in mind when you think about, I guess, staking versus auction. It doesn't have to be one or the other, right? You should probably put things in different places. But anyway, so that's that. And then the next one I want to touch on is an analogy that I use for what is the Parachain auction is like. So for those of you who might be familiar with, I guess, staking or yield farming, you can think about this as a committed staking or committed yield farming on Kusama. So basically, you are putting in your KSM as a bond. So you are yield farming, right? But you have to commit for however long the lease period is. So right now, the talks out there is between 6 months to 1 year. We still don't know. That's why you will see on our website, it's still TBD, right? So as soon as we know for sure, then we will release that figure to everyone. So basically, this concept is you kind of stake your KSM for Carrera, and then you will get a return in the KAR token, right? So and of course, this is different from your everyday yield farming because this is a lot longer term. So it kind of like, I always like use an analogy for the Parachain auction as a reverse ICO because on a normal ICO, you basically encourage people to set up a simple contract. and then you raise a whole bunch of funds, but you hold nobody accountable, right? So nobody is encouraged to deliver at the end once you raise a whole bunch of money. It's very good for crowdsourcing, but it's not very good to make people accountable for delivery. The setup on Polkadot, the Parachain auctions, it's a reverse that. So let me explain, right? Basically, you kind of ask people to put up a bond for KSM, and then at the end, they're getting KR in return, right? So you encourage the KSM holders to look long-term, because I'm sure there will be 100 poker projects out there promising you 1,000% APY. But then you have to ask yourself, do they still hold value after 6 months or a year? This is not you farming that you can just move your bags within 3 days or 2 weeks or something like that, right? So this is once you lock, it's going to lock for a relatively long period of time. So to kind of encourage everyone who participate, think slightly long-term, think about value, think about product and services they actually want to use or would want to use once those Parachain are launching, right? And then you also want to think, are those product and services is going to be able to bootstrap and actually create value for the network as a whole? Right, so that's a incentive alignment for the participant, the KSM or DOT holders, and then for the project part of it is we don't get anything out of this. We don't get the funds, so it's not a fundraising event. We don't get to touch any of the funds that you locked. The only thing we are getting is an opportunity to launch our network and then to prove to everyone that our product and services is going to create value. And then we only gain anything if after 6 months or a year, we deliver value, right? So then it kind of encourage us to deliver. If we have just a simple chain, have no product, I'll be, I'm not sure if I will be very confident that in 6 months time, I will be able to have traction or real utility of the network to serve everybody. So that's kind of like an incentive for the team to actually deliver. And then the third thing is, if this all goes really well, then this is an addition to the Kusama or the Polkadot ecosystem. It's going to bring the entire ecosystem up, right? Because you have real traction, real volumes, real cross-chain, DeFi activity, or whatever activities that will be going on. So it's a trickle-up effect, for the token holders, for the project, as well as for the entire DOT and KSM ecosystem. So yeah, I encourage you to think in the frames of that. But again, it's not a financial advice, but it's in general, when you think about projects, think about which auctions to participate. These are the parameters that you probably would want to think instead of just looking at a percentage of APY. That's as one ruler, right? So speaking of that,
Betty, one thing I wanted to add on this slide is people were asking about the 1 year. This is meant to be an example time frame. We're actually waiting to hear from Gavin and the team building Kusama on the exact duration of these slots. So we are hoping that the minimum is, or what am I trying to say? We're hoping that we can bid for at least a year, if not a couple years, but we're still waiting to hear of the exact parameters. The parameters that have been announced for Polkadot, and Polkadot's Parachain slots will be up to 2 years. So as a Parachain team, you can bid and commit to a 2-year time frame, and that's the amount of time that the DOT would actually be locked for. But that's the max. Teams can actually choose up to 1/4 of that on Polkadot, so it could be down to as little as 6 months. So if you're watching, if you're super engaged in the community, probably the number one thing that I'm watching for is how long the maximum is for Kusama slots, because it's a big deal and it really needs to be at least 1 year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then I also see some people asking the reward. So basically, once you participate into Crowdloan and then we manage to win, then the KR rewards will be given out as soon as we launch. So the full amount will be dropped to you as soon as we launch. But of course, there is a vesting, but 30% will be free liquid upfront, and then the rest of it will be vested throughout however long the lease period is. And then another parameters, I guess, to look after is we are giving out about 11% of supply, but that doesn't make any sense if you haven't actually read through our token economics. So I encourage you to, we just launched a very cool website. So you encourage you to actually look through it instead of the very dry and plain white paper. So basically the idea here is our token supply is fixed. So this is very important. So we are not actually printing inflations and then reward you for all the auctions and any activities. So basically, this is similar to, I guess, Bitcoin's fixed supply, right? It's 21 billion, and whatever you get is whatever you get, the percentage portion of the entire supply. So there's no new issuance of coins, right? So it's not in the design. So and so this is important to keep in mind. So when I say 11% of supply is used for the first year auction, it is a hugely significant amount, and that is not from inflation, and we don't print any of those. So hopefully, that make some sense there. And then, of course, this 11%. Beyond that, there are also other rewards once we are launched, because we're not just a chain. We also have a full set of product. So as long as you have, KSM or DOT, then you can use those for, using any of our DeFi products, and there will be liquidity programs that you can do some yield farming. But of course, our design is more sustainable yield farming. So hopefully people can enjoy a longer term, but more sustainable and stable return, rather than this, 4-digit returns. Then it doesn't last very long, right? So yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about. And then also I actually noted down one question that is very good. Someone actually asked about exchange. So I think for participating on the Crowdloan, there are a few different ways. So one is you can use your Polkadot.js and then come to the website, and then you can participate it, or you can go to the Polkadot.js web application to participate. If you're on an exchange, so we are working with a few of them, you need to check with your exchange if they directly support, Carrera or Akala's Crowdloan, and then you can do it on the exchange. But never use the exchange address directly on our Crowdloan on our website or on the Polkadot.js website. So yeah, so I hope that answers that question. And then that's all I will be sharing. I'll just stop there.
Cool. So I think it's been about 50 minutes. So we're going to start going through questions. Obviously, everyone is on totally different time zones. So that's it for the presentation if you do need to go. This is going to be available on our YouTube channel. I've pasted the link, but maybe Robin, you can paste that again. But it's just youtube.com/c/Acala Network. But let's get into the questions now, Betty. I'll just go through these and read them out, and then we can take a stab at all of them, or as many as we can. Okay, so the first one, since you can stake Kusama for 12% or more, how will the gains of participating in a Crowdloan compete with staking? I may let you take that, Betty.
Yeah, sure. I think I kind of answered that with that chart, the pie chart there, right? So yeah, so you need to think about how the optimal economy and how that may affect you, and also for each project, they are giving out rewards, and those rewards are probably you can calculate it with opportunity cost, so that 12%, is converted to how much that you think is valuable for the project. But obviously that's not a financial advice for you, but those are the frames that you can think about. But at the same time, many of these projects, if they haven't mainnet yet, right? So like Akala, we haven't launched our token yet. So for us, this is like a big thing. This is our token distribution event. So obviously, for us, this is like the first debut to the public. And then that's another probably thinking in comparison the different Parachain auctions, then you can figure out whether it's worthwhile supporting the projects. And also at the same time, if you're only holding a token and staking, where's the value come from? If Polkadot only have its relay chain, is it going to be valuable? I think Polkadot's vision is actually have 100 parachains. That's how Polkadot becomes this world-changing sort of technology as the base layer of the Web3 Internet of the Internet of blockchains, right? So if it only has one chain, you're only supporting that one relay chain, then it's not very much aligned with where you actually want the Polkadot ecosystem to go. So hopefully that's also another pointer to think about.
Cool. The next one is a good question. So will Carrera be cross-chain compatible with ETH immediately from launch?
Yeah, so I think for folks who's been with us for a while, it's very easy to watch. If we let's say if we announce something in the next month or so that there's a Ethereum Bridge, and you can actually go on and click and kind of teleport your ETH or ERC20 into the Akala testnet, then you know for sure that it's going to happen. So we're aiming for that. So we already have something working, but it's not to our standard to be able to launch to the public just yet. So yeah.
Have the min and max caps per person been determined for the Karura Crowdloan?
I don't think there's a minimum, but we will warn people that you need to put more than the existential requirements. But basically, if you put, I think is it one dot or something is the minimum requirement, right? Otherwise, your account is gonna get scrapped. So you need to participate at least one dot, because otherwise, when the dot returns to your account, it's gonna be contributed to the treasury. There's not a problem for us, but then you probably don't want your dot to be directly contributed to treasury if it's too little amount. But other than that, we don't have any specific requirement at this stage. Yeah.
Okay. How many ACA tokens is estimated to be rewarded for each dot loaned for each of these different lease periods? I can answer that. We haven't released or determined anything related to the Acala Crowdloan quite yet. Everything right now, just keep an eye out for the additional details for the length and the duration of the Kusama slots, and that will determine many of the numbers for Karura. And then we'll follow that up, of course, with all the information about Akala when the time comes, but nothing on that yet. How long will the founding team have their tokens locked?
That's a good question. That's why we put up the token page. So you can look it up there. So it's basically lock 18 months and then vest another 18 months. So it's a long time coming.
Yep. This person's asking about, okay, so what is the percentage of value that you would get from KSM to LKSM when borrowing against it?
Yeah, so this is actually a little bit like, I do have to use the compound analogy again. So when you put your DAI into the pool, you are continuously earning interest, and then it's represented in the CDAI token. So in the KSM and LKSM is similar from the concept perspective. So when you put the KSM into the pool, you still have that much KSM, but every day you're going to accrue more KSM staking yield that will represent in the L token. So you will see when you have your liquid KSM account, you will see your KSM just keep going up, basically. And then that's just based on the staking yield that you get on a daily basis.
Yep. So Tom, good question. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so will the Acala Crowdloan participants get Carrera Airdrop, or getting Carrera is only possible through KSM Crowdloan?
I think we don't know. The Acala Crowdloan is going to happen way after the Karura Crowdloan. So we're just focused on the Karura campaign, right? So I think there's always many different ways to actually participate, right? So obviously the Crowdloan is the biggest one that we are preparing right now. So all our focus is on that to try to figure out if we are giving out enough rewards, and also different ways to incentivize people, and also get as many our own community members participate as possible. But as for later on, maybe a month or 2 months, I don't know how long the Acala Crowdloan or Polkadot is ready, then we can go into a bit more detail on if you participate in Acala Crowdloan, what you're gonna get, right? So right now I'm talking mostly just the Karura or Kusama Parachain auction.
Cool. Okay, another good question. So Brian asked, I guess Betty, you answered it in the text, but I'll just read it real quick. So will all the funds raised through the Crowdloan be used for the auction, or will the team only bid enough to win the auction and ultimately not use all the funds? So like Betty said here, we can't touch the funds. It's a bond for the Parachain to access Polkadot's network security. So it's kind of like the analogy that I said earlier with the poker chips. Like whatever we raise in the Crowdloan goes all into the Parachain auction process. So there's never going to be an excess of that like we would keep, because first of all, we can't touch the funds. And then second of all, everything in the Crowdloan goes into the auction, so there won't be any excess. Will you integrate the Crowdloan functionality into Ledger Live?
Not for the first one. We're working with them, but it takes a while. So unlikely for the Kusama or Karura auction for the first one. Maybe for the later auctions, yeah.
So, yeah, some of these I think you've answered, Betty, but will there be separate Crowdloans? So yes, there's a Crowdloan first for Carrera, for Kusama, and then there's a Crowdloan after that for Akala on Polkadot, probably a couple months later. I'm not sure exactly what this means. So why does Akala want to migrate their own blockchain over time?
Yeah, so you can think about Polkadot as a relay chain. It kind of does its own network security, right? So that's why it's where the market cap comes from, right? For a project like us, like a startup, it's very hard to come up with like 35 billion from day one and then secure ourselves. So that's why we kind of started as a parachain with Polkadot. But how this whole internet of blockchain is going to scale is ultimately if we grow into maturity and then we have enough market cap ourselves, and then we would like to scale our financial our financial universe, then we can then graduate from Polkadot into our own relay chain, right? That's why we have our own network control value, our wealth fund. It's all geared up for that for long term. I mean, it probably doesn't make that much sense, right here, right now. I talk about it, but over time, I think people will figure out, what if we want to graduate, and that's the path that we think is viable. So once we graduate, then you can think about us as another, like a Kusama-like relay chain, right? And because there will be bridges between Kusama, Polkadot, and there will also be bridges between Polkadot and Akala relay chain with all of its satellite, parachains in the financial realm still. So that's how because Polkadot is not gonna stop at 100 parachains. You can imagine the world in the future will be tens of thousands of blockchains, and that's why that's how it will actually evolve. But that's more of a longer term plan. Yeah.
I'm just showing a quick image that I made last year. So this is actually kind of what Betty was talking about. So this is like, I think what Gavin's called Polkadot 2.0, maybe it's beyond that, but it's essentially like relay chains within relay chains, or relay chains nested within the core Polkadot relay chain. So in Bette's example, with Akala becoming a relay chain in the future, we would be something like this, where we plug into Polkadot as a like into one of these slots, but what we're actually plugging in is an entire multi-chain ecosystem for Akala. So this is definitely not any official graphic. I just made it for fun to see what it would look like, but this is kind of helpful to see what this like multi-relay chain world would look like.
Yeah, I think someone also asking like timing and stuff. Folks are a bit confused. So it's not like this is happening tomorrow, right? The reason we are doing this is because it is very confusing, and it's a very new concept, right? People are familiar with ICO yield farming, but not quite Parachain auction and then bootstrapping a network this way. So that's why we're doing this. So it's not like it's starting tomorrow. So usually, if you are staking KSM, there's a 7-day unbounding period, right? So we'll at least tell you 1 or 2 weeks before. Well, we'll actually tell you as soon as we know from Polkadot or Kusama when it's happening. So, like, you know, don't panic. You can still stake and earn return, and then we'll tell you at the first. Yeah.
All right. So I think we're 3 minutes over the hour. Maybe we can take just a couple more questions. Yeah, a lot of these are about timing, and Bette just answered that. So. Oh, here's a good question. Okay. Bart asked, let's say a Crowdloan loses the auction, or let's say a team loses the auction. How are we going to get our tokens back? As far as I know, Polkadot and Kusama aren't smart contract capable yet, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know, Bette, do you want to start that one and then?
Sorry, what's the question?
I can start. So he's basically asking, so what happens if your team loses the auction? So I mentioned before that these auctions will happen every 2 weeks is that's what Polkadot said. So we're expecting at this point the same to happen for Kusama. So if we weren't to win, or if any team weren't to win the first one, they could actually take that Crowdloan that they collected from their community and roll that into the next one just a couple weeks later. So just be on a lookout for kind of language around this, because whatever parachain you're supporting will probably let you know, like, the funds will be locked for X amount of time. That allows them to use it for not only one parachain auction, but potentially if they need to participate in 2 or 3 to get the auction, then they can. Okay. When Moon. Okay, I think we're good. There's a lot of questions. I'll check and see if there's anything else that are kind of big questions, and I can always try to follow up in an email if you guys need. But let's just wrap it up. So just to summarize, hopefully you learned something new. Let's check the poll actually. Okay, good. It's better than it was at the beginning. So 66 people still have no clue. So let's try it again next week, I guess. Next week, we are going to be doing a little bit of a presentation more specifically to Carrera. So showing a demo of the DeFi applications that we'll be able to use KSM and KUSD and our DEX and all that stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about Crowdloans next week. Hopefully today you learned a little bit about Polkadot and Kusama that you didn't know before. I also hope that you learned about Crowdloans and Parachain auctions and are hopefully as excited as I am for this all to start. It's kind of like we're coming up upon something that's brand new for the whole industry. And I think it's great to show Polkadot and Kusama's leadership broadly in bringing this new ethical model to how to actually bootstrap these projects. And yeah, Bette and I really appreciate the time. Hopefully you enjoyed learning a little bit about Karura and Akala as well. And please be on the lookout for kind of communications from us. Join our channels. I think the newsletter is probably going to become soon one of the more important channels to be a part of, just to keep up with like the most important updates. So be sure to follow our newsletter. And
we should leak some alpha then.
Go for it.
So do subscribe to our newsletter. There will be some cool stuff coming next week. And then I don't think you want to miss that one. I think our waitlist already closed right then. But it doesn't mean you can't get on to Carrera because it's an open one. Everyone can participate. So there will be something out next week. So just like stay tuned.
Yeah, follow the newsletter is what Bette says. It's important. So all right, cool. Let's close it. Thanks everybody. Have a good day or a good night.